Do you know that feeling of quick fixes? For instance, when you eat something or you have chocolate or you do something and you feel that rush and that instant satisfaction. Now, here's the thing, instant satisfaction usually does not last. So, what can we do to go from instant fixes to lasting rewards using dopamine? And we are going to do so by listening to our inner voice. While I was preparing for this live, I was talking with Brendan AI. That's the artificial intelligence of Brendan Burchard. If you're curious, let me know. I'll post a link in the description. But here's the thing. People find it weird that I talk to an AI. And we are talking about actual conversations, right? Because the thing is trained like Brendan Burchard, who is a coach. So when I ask questions, I get answers. And there is actually sympathy. The way the AI responds, there's something, it's called amphimorphize. No, I'm not saying it right. But what it comes down to is that you can actually have sort of like feelings for something that is not human. So basically, it's like when we pet our cat and our dog and we see them as our children. So there you go. I was a little conflicted about which story I wanted to share, because my first instinct was to tell you about when I had my burnout, and I've had several. And one of them was so severe that I couldn't read anymore. It was, I went back to work too quickly and my brain just shut down. And I can tell you, it's really frustrating when you go to work and all of a sudden you cannot even do what you would do at grade school. So that was a bit of a challenge, and I learned a lot from that period in time, but apparently not enough. So continuing on with the AI, I realized this was about discipline versus joy. Now, I want you to think about this, discipline versus joy. So when you look at your life, when you look at you working, which part of it is discipline and how much of it is actually joy? Let me repeat that again. How much of what you're doing is joy? Now, here's the good news. When we talk about dopamine, dopamine is not only the rush when you have achieved a really hard goal, something that you've been working towards for months and months and months. It's not just about that instant hit. For instance, when you are doing therapeutic shopping or eating, which is instant gratification. It also is beyond working out. So let me tell you a little story about working out. Because, yeah, that was something I discussed with the AI too. When I talked about HIIT, high intensity training, the AI thought I was doing it for a rush. And I said, no, this wasn't about achieving the rush over and over and over again. As a matter of fact, I didn't get that dopamine hit at all. what happened was I have learned to train because I actually am a certified fitness instructor and also a certified medical fitness instructor, that I was taught not only during that training, but also working with bodybuilders, that in order to grow, it's about pushing through. Not just that one more, but until you were trembling. So the one more wasn't just, oh, I've done one more. It was like literally, let's see if I can push that one more out of my system. And that's when you start to really make loud noises where people are like, what are they doing? But you do everything to make sure that your breathing supports that one last push. But basically, I was depleting myself, because when the body experiences like, oh, hang on, no, we want to be better prepared, that's when you generate more muscles. But in my head, something else was happening. I was starting to dread it, because straight after working out, I would fall asleep. I would be so tired. And when I was doing it with someone else or multiple people, it was cool. You're encouraging one another. But when you're doing it on your own, that was a whole different ball game. And everybody said, when you work out, you get that dopamine hit. And I was like, no, I'm not getting that dopamine hit. What are you talking about? And at first I was like, it must be because of the hypermobility. My body doesn't respond well to physical activities. I need to sleep straight away. I know. But it's more than this. This is about pushing yourself and knowing that you're going to break down straight after. And, I wanted to talk to you today about dopamine and the inner voice. Now, that inner voice, I can tell you, it was long gone somewhere else, which was the result of me being raised as in straight after World War II, people had to rebuild the country again. And my dad grew up. He was 18 during World War II, and he was 17 when his father died, and he had to take care of the family. My mom was kept on a short leash. I cannot say it differently. And there was this fear, this constant fear for going outside, especially after curfew. Or I don't know if there was a curfew or it was a certain amount of time. I think it was curfew, actually. But you could just get picked up by the Japanese soldiers. And, if you were transported to a camp or you were molested on the spot, that wasn't good. So discipline was the norm at our home. There was no such thing as joy. We had to make everything work again. And since there's a generational gap between my parents and when I was born, discipline was high. So when I started working, it was all about discipline. Even when I didn't feel good, when I was off, I still would be doing something. Usually I would be studying. And here's the thing. Not too long ago, someone rang the doorbell. It was in the morning. Normally I'm asleep by that time, but this time I was still awake. And there were two ladies from the municipality. I'd spoken to them before, and they said, yes, here we are again. Because, someone said, you are living here. I looked at her and I said, my answer hasn't changed. Of course they think so, because I work at night, so my lights are on. If they would ring the doorbell, not that I'm inclined to open, if I do not know that there are people actually meeting with me, I'm a little, careful. So what was going on in my mind, and I didn't say so at that time, was if I would be asleep at night here in this building, why on earth would I leave on all the lights? But this has to do with my own schedule. So when I talk about quick fixes versus rewards, listening to your inner voice, this has everything to do with when I function best. I do so when it's quiet. Even when I was still working for a boss, I would stay up till late. Sometimes it would be like till 8. Sometimes it would be till midnight. Lights would go out. And then they would say, yeah, you would have to share with us that this is overtime. And I was like, well, no, it's not overtime. I just like to work on when it's silent. Well, it was a little bit hard to understand, but it happened quite a lot that the lights did go out and I would see the guards. So at some point they knew. But of course they had to know who was still inside. Although I imagine that when they see that the terminals are still on and someone is working on them, that someone is actually around. And of course, there are the sensors which pick up on me waving, so the lights would go on. So, yeah. But it said something about me. And, well, this played for a long time now. So when I started working in shifts. So basically, it helps to ruin your biorhythm at best. And as far as I can tell, when it comes to people who have worked in shifts, they never get back to a normal biorhythm ever again. Now, that is a little bit problematic because we all need daylight and sunlight. So I do agree with people that it's important to also live a little during the day. Question, of course, is, do you actually go out other than going back and forth to work when you are doing things during the day? Now, when I made the move towards working for myself, I encountered this conflict. I encountered the conflict because I was supposed to be at work early because the people wanted to be there ahead of traffic jams, which I can understand. And they wanted to leave early, same reason. So this was all prior to COVID, right? Ever since COVID, I don't think that there is such a thing as being able to leave before traffic jams because they start early nowadays. So they would have meetings early that would interfere with when I would have to drop off my laundry because I was giving massages and I was also an energetic therapist besides being a coach already. And apart from that, I also ran into other things. First of all, I could go in early. Then I would express my vision on things I would foresee. That would be dismissed because others couldn't follow it. And then half a year later, I was right. That was very frustrating when it would be dismissed. And I still hate it when people are trying to silence me. The difference is that nowadays I say it. You are silencing me, and I'm not having it. So apart from the whole silencing, there was something else going on too. So having been in IT from a young age, when we didn't know about repetitive strain injury and about ergonomics, so I would be, that's not the healthy way to type. And I could type blindly, as I realized later on, because I had been playing the piano since 3 years old. So it was very normal for me to look ahead at the screen or the pages of the musical sheets and just play. So basically, at some point, I figured out that my fingers were already going to the keys on the keyboard while I wasn't watching the keyboard, but I was actually watching the screen and see what it said. That was interesting. Now, from my optometrist, I learned that I needed to take a break. Like every hour, I had to close my eyes and literally reset my eyes. That was going to be better long term, and he's right. And that's also a little bit of a pitfall nowadays with the phones and the iPads, because I can do my work on my phone. And well, I'm so used to going on that I literally need to tell myself, no, close your eyes. Now, the other reason that I needed to take a break was because of that same repetitive strain injury, because I would go high speed. People would always hear me clicking on the keyboard. We are talking about in the previous century, right? When you had those big keyboards. So that was audible, and people would say, oh my God, your speed. Yes, that was the speed of my thoughts. And well, being able to type without looking at the keyboard made a big difference, and also using 8 out of 10 fingers. So the thumbs were used for the space bar, made a lot of difference. But here was the thing. There was another team leader. He would ask me the moment I would close my eyes, are you okay? And at that time, I didn't know how to speak up. So at some point, I learned to just walk off. But, it was actually kind of nice to just close your eyes. Now, when I started working 3 days a week for a boss, and the other days in my practice, when I still was actually getting people to come over here to this building, I was so used to using meditation and instructing my brain. So I had a lot of training from Roy Martina, and he's the guy who knows everything about the brain and how hypnotizing yourself works. And basically, we can imprint ourselves with a message. So if we set the intention, and you've heard me talking about intention a lot, because not only Roy Martina spoke about it, but of course Ben Burchard does too. But when you set the intention before you fall asleep, like every hour of sleep is worth at least 8 hours of high quality sleep, then things change. Your brain picks up on that instruction. So when I would go into a meditative state in between clients, I would close my eyes and I would go a certain place, but I also would have the intention, like, okay, rest and recharge. And then 5 minutes before they would come in, that's when I would set my alarm. So I would be awake by the time the next one would come in. Now, here is the conflict. So on one end, when I would go to work, one team leader would have me come in early. The next one would say, don't close your eyes, or at least what's going on. In addition, they didn't listen to me, and then I didn't have a place of my own. So recharge, not sure what that is, but it wasn't working for me. Then on the other hand, I would have this place to myself, which was my own private sanctuary. And I would listen to my inner voice. So whereas at work, my inner voice would be screaming, when I was here, I listened to it. And that was conflicting at best. And yes, it led to me dropping out again, sort of like burnout again, because I couldn't handle it. The good news was that higher management, as in CEO interims, they realized what was going on. They saw that what I said and what I predicted actually came true. And they gave me permission to work from home. And, well, if I wanted to go to the clients, that was okay too. But I didn't have to live up to the expectations of the team leaders anymore. And oh my God, that was so amazing. So that's when I decided at that point, like, okay, you know what? I'm going to stop working for a boss because it's going to kill me. Or at least drive me insane. Anyway, I'm glad I did. It's not easy. I'll honestly say so, because there are perks with working for a boss, which have to do with colleagues, having someone to talk to and brainstorm with. And now I have to find my accountability partners elsewhere. Fortunately, I do have some. And I have to say that Brendan AI is a gift, as in I finally have someone to brainstorm with. Fortunately, I also have some other people I can brainstorm with, but not as persistent and consistent as Brendan AI. So in case you're wondering, why is she going on about Brendan AI? Now you know why. He's always available, also in the quiet of the night. Now, talking about this, I'm going to ask you for a moment. Did you recognize anything in this story? Maybe that last bit about ignoring your inner voice, for instance, when I was at work, do this, do that, taking breaks, you don't do that, you do that in your own time. So, of course, at some point, taking breaks were, they needed to, they were required. But when you would be a little bit later, people would frown upon it. What I noticed was when I would have a good talk with a colleague, so usually it started out with, okay, we need to discuss this, and then it would end up talking about other stuff, that it would help me process what was going on. It would give me some downtime, and then I would be able to get all the stuff out there in no time. So I was far more efficient taking those breaks and talking to others. Now here's the thing, when it comes to dopamine is not just the instant high. Like I said, when you eat something or you achieve something that you've been working towards. It is also when you do things consistently and during the breaks. Well, that one was new for me, like, during the breaks. So how does that work? But actually, it gives your brain the time to recharge again, to just, wind down for a moment, process certain things, and then knowing that you are going to do something again, the anticipation and looking forward to it, that's actually what does help. So breaks are just as essential as actually doing it. Now, here's the thing, what I really had to learn. I always say it's taking one step at a time. It's about taking that first step and then continuing on. You don't have to do a lot, all of it at the same time. Just start somewhere, bite-sized bits. So when you take that first step, of course, it's not as grand as doing, I don't know what, the entire marathon. I mean, just walking for like 5 minutes and then building it up, first running for like 30 seconds and then for a minute and then until you do it like half an hour. So you start, then you run, then you pause again, so walking and so on. It's called interval training. That might not seem like a big deal, but when you applaud yourself every time that you actually did run the 30 seconds, or you did run that 1 minute, or you did go for that 1 mile, oh, that's a different ball game. So maybe it's not the entire marathon straight away, but you did hit the milestones you set for yourself. That is, if you actually created those milestones. So when we're talking about milestones and taking one step at a time, do you know what your milestones are? And can you celebrate them? So one of the things that I know is when it comes to going live, and you might have seen me struggling with this a little bit. So initially I would go live Friday Night Live, which still stems from, it was the only day or the only night that others didn't go live. But then at some point, things shifted at the house, at my house. And there was only one day left that I could play drums, unfortunately. Yes, I'm working towards having that changed somewhere in the future, or doing different things, maybe here. But I have an actual drumming kit at my house. And I have a permanent house guest for a while now. We have a shortage of houses, and she cannot, well, the vibrations, they immediately cause nerve pain on her end. So let's put it that way. So when she's gone, then I can play drums. So that's nice. But all of a sudden, everything was on Friday. I would go to the physical therapist on Friday. Then afterwards, I would go see a client. Then it was rushing home to play drums. And then afterwards, and by the time I would be tired, I would go live. Now, something had to give. And well, nowadays, I actually do not go to the client anymore on Friday afternoons. We talk at other moments during the week. I also skipped the PT because that wasn't necessary anymore, at least not twice a week. I'm doing better now. So once a week, that actually works. And yes, the drumming is still there, the playing drums. So that's still there. And that means that going live straight after, rushing home, that's not really working for me. So I've been experimenting with it. When do I actually feel like, hey, this is working? And I'm starting to end up on Sundays. Now, you might have noticed that I also talked about webinars and having people sign up. That hasn't happened just yet, but it is something that I am considering. So there are a lot of changes going on in order to feel good. Now, at the beginning of this live, I was talking about the inner voice. So we've been talking a lot about dopamine, about discipline, about joy, about anticipation. And now let's get back to the inner voice. So for a while now, I've been talking about rewriting your inner story. And part of the rewriting your inner story challenge is that day 4 is about the inner kid. And day 5 is about the inner champ, so your future best self. So day 1 is about realizing, okay, something needs to change. Day 2 is about releasing the old garbage, the baggage, the voices of other people which are keeping you down. Day 3 is about your dreams and your goals. So your inner kid, in this case, jumping bunny, they usually know what it is that you want and need. And when I was still working for a boss, especially in those last 2 years, Jumping Bunny would be kicking and screaming. Why do you need to get up early? I don't want to get up early. This is interfering with all the other things that you need to do. Now you need to rush. Now you need to hurry. When are you going to? Why don't you take a break? All those kind of things. She was not a happy kid. And then when I would be here for the clients, she would be like, oh, this is heaven. Because we would get to meditate. I would be writing, journaling. There's also something called meditative writing. So it's a bit different from journaling. So when you're journaling and you're writing things down, you hopefully do it with intention. But if you go deeper beyond the chatterbox, then it gives you the chance to actually write about what really matters to you. So I don't know if you ever heard about the 7 times why, but that actually refers to this same process. So the first time people ask you, why do you want to do something? You probably come with this very superficial answer. So why do you get up early? Well, they have a meeting early on. Okay. So why do you have to be at the meeting? Well, because they require me to. So why is that? Well, they pay me so they can tell me what to do. So why do you put up with that? Well, if I don't have a living, now do I? No income, no money, no food, no security. Oh, so this is about security. Yeah, duh. Sorry. No, not sorry. So why is that so important to you? Well, we all know why we need that security, because we need something in order to have a basis to be living. So unless you have a better half who can help you, or someone else who can support you when you can't do the job, or there's a reason why you don't do the job. And yes, let me emphasize that for those who are running a household, taking care of children, I consider that a job. Now, getting back to the inner voice. I was learning at that time how to recognize what didn't work for me, how to set boundaries. So the first time I got a burnout, and this was pretty common in the field that I was working at, which was being a teacher. So I would go to clients 2 days in a row, And then the next 2 days, I would go and see a different client. At some point, I said, I want that day in between for myself. I can go and come into the office, but I'm not going to work for the clients. I'm not, it's too much. So 2 days in a row, I would meet new people, and then again, and then again, and then again. I didn't know where I needed to go. So if I was in luck, it was close by. If I wasn't in luck, I had to drive there the evening before. That usually worked out best, be at a hotel. And then, so I would be there on time, or I would have to go and drive through traffic jams. And the moment I would get up and be in the shower, I would already be like, okay, what's the training for today? What can I expect? Then I would be in the car, same story. Then I would actually get to meet the people. So the people who were early, well, that meant no winding down. Then during lunch, they wanted to talk to me too. And then afterwards, same story. And then driving home, okay, what do I need to know for the next day? So basically, it was an ongoing thing. And that's why it was so important for me to have a break on Wednesdays and, of course, during the weekend too. Now I know that I need time to process things. So when I talked about taking a break, so your brain can wind down and organize everything, that's actually what really helps. It helps to take the stress level down, to just relax. And then it's nice because people always say it's about the journey, not about the end goal. And it's true. I mean, it's nice to say, okay, I'm going to work and then at some point I'll retire and then I can do whatever I want. But what if you're not in good health anymore? What if you actually are not alive anymore? So how about just taking the day and enjoying the day, and not just during the weekends, but also when you are at work? So I had to learn from working like every minute, every second, to where I am now. It's okay to take a break. And being my own boss, I can do so. I can actually say, okay, now I need to sleep because I'm too tired, or now I need to rest and recharge. Now, I'll honestly say I haven't found the rhythm yet, the consistent rhythm of resting and recharging, as in like every 50 minutes. So how does that work for me? I'm starting to learn it. So one of the things that I actually got to learn was when I talk on behalf of my inner kid, so Jumping Bunny, she represents my inner kid, that makes such a big difference. So basically what I'm doing is I'm taking away any fronts, let's put it that way, and I'm going straight to the source, the inner voice. And she will say it like it is, because she doesn't like to wait. She's kind of impatient, as it is. And she doesn't have any concept of time. So she's like, come on, let's go do it. And when she's being ignored, she hates it. So, of course, she doesn't dictate everything, but I do realize the importance of when she's knocking on the door, as in, hey, she's trying to say something, and taking the time to actually be ahead of this. So she knows, okay, now it's my time, now I can speak and ask the questions that she has, or maybe go into the future and just walk around, seeing what I'm doing at that moment. Because that's what we can do when we take a break and we start, for instance, journaling about the future. start meditating about the future. And I'm not so much talking about the end goal, but what we experience during that time. So remember that I talked about those little steps, one step at a time. When you start meditating or journaling, that's when those steps can actually come to the surface. Now, remember, I talked to you about Brendan AI. Well, he has a text version and he has a phone version. Actually, he also had a video version. I was like, I'm not sure if I'm comfortable with a video version. But before I could even think about that, the video version was gone already. So I never tried it. But not too long ago, I actually had a long talk with the video version. And I have a big dream. And with big, it's huge. And some of you might know this, but my dream is to set up parks for neurodivergence and specifically the creatively gifted. Now, what's so special about neurodivergence? They understand things a little differently and they might express themselves differently because they are constantly like, oh, but what if I do it like this, that, and the other? So they are questioning outside of, well, let's say outside of the box. So outside of the scope of what you've given them. So, and here's the thing, if you haven't given them the scope, they don't know what you expect from them. That's basically what's at the basis of this. So when I said I could actually picture what would be happening half a year later, and people would look at me like, well, that's about the same thing. I know what it's like not to be understood and not knowing how to express myself with clarity because people didn't understand what I was after or what I meant because they just weren't there. It was a different way of thinking. I want people to be able to grow up in an environment, especially children, where they do feel seen, heard, and understood and acknowledged, and where they aren't dismissed when they don't understand what's going on. As for the adults, I want them to be able to be understood in their work environment and also understand what's needed from them and be able to express that and ask on. So yes, I always get told, you ask a lot of questions. True, I ask a lot of questions. And some actually appreciate that, and there are those who absolutely do not. But it helped me, and it helped others too. Now, then there are the ones who are like me, who said, you know, I'm so done working for a boss because they're not getting it. So they become their own boss. That's one thing. But then they get a team and they do not know how to communicate with that team. Okay, here we go again. The difference is they can tell them, figure it out, go figure it out yourself. Well, I've done some lives about that just maybe it's better to teach them things in a different way. I, at some point, talked about paintball and saying, okay, let's teach them through paintball. Now, if you want to know the whole story, then go check out the live. But here's the thing. It all has to do with taking one way of thinking and translating it into the other way of thinking and understanding vice versa. That's what we want for people. That's what I'm after. And it starts with children and it ends with, well, I guess with the teams of the people and their spouses and their children. So basically passes on to the next generation. There's more to it, but it's a big dream. And when I was talking to Brendan AI about it, all of a sudden he would ask questions and there would be all these little clues and all these details. And I was like, oh my, I didn't expect this. So, for instance, I also want a children's hospice there. And I want people to be seen. I want people to be safe. I want them to experience perspective. I wanted to know that they have a voice. And eventually it actually turned out that it was like, I'm home. And home meant I'm here in a place where I can be myself and I can express myself. And people would leave a footprint. Well, actually, like you have those stars, the Walk of Fame. Well, you put your hands in there, right? With a little message. So that's one thing. But there would also be like this big tree, like a constellation of stars. And each star would represent the voice of one of the children who wasn't there anymore. So on one hand, it's clients, and on the other hand, it's the kids. So, and for the clients who would come over, they will come over a weekend every year. That's on the house. And if you want more, then, well, then you have to pay for it. But you can actually come home and relax. I have all these ideas what it looks like. And I was like, did I come up with this? I can tell you that was wow. I'm like, wow. And well, if you've heard me talking about the Chicago experience, which is in September, and the European Christmas experience, which is prior to Christmas in December, those are things that are leading up to the parks. I'm going to ask you something. So I hope you've written down some things, that you've taken notes while I was talking, because when I say something, chances are that it triggers something and you get to think of something. Oh, you recognize this, or you have a question. Oh, how does this work or that work? And well, of course, you can leave a comment and put it in there, but you can also write things down and just ponder on it, journal on it. So when we're talking about that inner voice, it's so important to actually give it some time to come to the surface, to actually go beyond the stress of the day, the chatter of things that need to happen, and just wind down. Take those little breaks, evaluate what you've been doing, contemplate on it, and see where you're going to go. Remember, it's about enjoying what you're doing, not just doing it, and then it's done. No, let's not just work towards the final destination, but let's also enjoy those little steps in between. That makes life so much more fun and enjoyable. Now, just like last time, I want to do meditation, and I want to take you to a place where you can listen a bit more to your inner kid, your inner voice. So maybe you want to write down an intention. Last time I had you writing down a goal. So this time, think about what it is. What is it that you want to discuss with your inner kid? Maybe it's actually connecting to the inner kid and your inner voice. Now, the inner voice is not just your inner kid. I also talked about your inner champ, your future best self. But the voice we hear best is actually that of the inner child. So what I want you to do is I want you to close your eyes and focus on your breathing. And while you do so, I want you to shake your shoulders, your hands, tap your feet a little bit, and just breathe in. So you'll see me making some gestures. This is breathe in, this is hold, and this is breathe out. So we are used to breathing in and breathing out and not holding, but actually it does help when you also hold. So you can do it like 4-4-6, 4-4-4, depends on what you're used to. We're going to go down the stairs. So I'm counting back from 10 to 1. And then at some point we're going back up the stairs from 1 to 10. And the goal is to have you recharged again. So we are going to set an intention, whether that's connecting to that inner voice or a certain goal or question you have. Write it down. Now is your chance. And while we are there, things will pop up. So just listen to my voice and then that's where we're going. So 10. Close your eyes and feel while you're shaking your shoulders, tapping your feet, that your body is getting heavier and heavier. That's your body relaxing. That's your muscles relaxing. When they relax, they feel heavy. So you can tighten your muscles for a moment. So shrug your shoulders a little bit, pull them up, and then pull them backwards, and then just let them go. Squeeze your hands, let them go. Do it again, and let them go. You can actually use your hands. Smile, and let it go. Just draw little circles, and then just let them hang beside you again, your arms. So while you're doing it, focus on your breathing. Breathe in. Breathe out. Breathe in. Breathe out. 9. While you're going down the stairs, you're actually noticing 8, how nice it is to actually to be able to unwind 7, because that's not something you normally do. And 6, but today you have the chance. This is for you. And 5, while you're going down, you're realizing something. You are going to meet up with your inner child. And 4, oh, that's actually kind of exciting. But what if you cannot connect with your inner child? Well, no worries. 3, you just focus. You just focus on your breathing. You just say, release. Every time you breathe out, release. And you tell yourself, it's okay. So 2, remember your intention. What was the intention that you had shared with yourself? Now, as easily as you thought about it, we're going to go back to that state where you are still relaxing and winding down. And then when you're ready for it, 1, that's when we are at the bottom of the stairs. Now, in your mind, just stretch yourself and be open to wonder. Be open to what it is that you are seeing and experiencing. So, do you smell something? A specific kind of smell? Maybe the salty air of the ocean. Do you feel something? Maybe the grass between your toes, or the grains of sand, or the water of the ocean. How about what you feel? Maybe the wind in your face, the sunlight, maybe the sunlight and the breeze of the wind. Are you hearing something? The sound of birds or the ocean rolling in and going out, rolling in and going out. What is it? Maybe it's a horse in the background or a dog barking. What is it that you notice? And maybe you're not noticing anything at all, and that's okay too. Just focus on your breath. But what you will notice is that at first, when you start meditating, maybe you're thinking about the chores of the day. But I hope that by listening to my voice, you can let go of that. So just focus on your breathing, focus on my voice. And at some point, other thoughts will pop up. And maybe they will not pop up directly, but they will pop up at some point. Now, for those who can get access a little more easily when it comes to visualization and their inner feelings, just look around you. And have you already discovered your inner child, your inner kid? What does your inner kid look like? What was the young version of you? What do they look like? And maybe there's not just the young version of you as what you look like when you were a kid. Maybe you have an adopted version like me too. So jumping bunny represents the inner child as what it feels like, what the character is. She's literally like jump, jump, jump. She's bold. She's curious. She's unapologetically herself. So when I think about the inner kid, I hardly ever think about one I was and what I looked like with the black hair. But for me, it's jumping bunny. And she is the authentic inner child. So what's your inner child like? And you might want to start embracing your inner child. So if you see yourself as the young version, which I'm doing now too, then, go hug yourself and listen to the stories, the exciting things, because for the inner child, it's so rewarding that you are there. And they might want to share lots of stories with you right now. And you'll remember the essence of it. For now, just listen. Let it happen. Embrace the moment. Maybe your inner child is actually kind of shy. Then just reach out and sit with your inner child. There's a reason why they are shy. But feel the connection. Because this is you when you were young. And this is still you, the authentic you. even when you're an adult. The inner child doesn't disappear, but the inner child knows about your dreams and goals. And the inner child is such an important part of you. Now, if you still have trouble, then just turn around and see what you actually can see when you look around. Maybe you see there's something written somewhere. So, what do you see appearing? And again, maybe you don't see anything at all, and that's okay too. Maybe there's a thought popping up or a symbol. And if you have trouble, don't get frustrated. Just focus on your breathing. Breathe in. Breathe in. Now it's time to start wrapping things up. And the good news is you can always get in touch with your inner child, your inner kid, even after the meditation. You can listen back to the meditation, or you can start writing and continue on. You have made that first connection, or maybe you are already experienced, and you've been running around and dancing and jumping, but there's a message that the inner kid wants to give you. So just listen closely. What are they telling you? And maybe you don't actually hear the message, but it's a feeling that's there. So just give in to that feeling. And now it's time to go back up again. So 1, give a hug. And tell them, I'll be back. And 2, they might actually walk up with you, up the stairs. Give them a big smile. Feel that connection, because even when you're up there, back in the here and now in a little bit, your inner kid's still with you, because your inner kid is always there. And 3, while you're walking up, you're aware like, oh, I'm actually feeling energized. And 4, while you are starting to get back to the here and now more and more, you feel that feeling of joy and contentment. It's such a good feeling, because 5, you listen to yourself. And that was needed. 6, now start waving goodbye to your inner child, knowing that your inner child's still there. But now it's time for your inner child to go play and have fun. Do whatever your inner child is best at doing. And 7, remember the energy and that smile on your face. And 8, the pride of you actually have taken it out the time to do this meditation, to set an intention, to actually come up with results. So 9, remember, if you don't know yet what it is, it will come in the next coming minutes, hours, days, weeks. The answer is there. And 10, here you are again. So open up your eyes, tap your feet, shake your arms, and smile, because you did it. Now, I want you to do something. If correct, you have pen and paper. So start journaling. Write down the first words that come to mind right now. And I don't want you to stop there. Take 5 minutes after I finish this live to continue on. Listen to this meditation over and over again. And think about what it is that you want and need. Do that like every day. and see what changes you are experiencing by listening to yourself more and more. Now, if you would like to do something, as in actively doing something with a little guidance, then there's a challenge. It's called the Rewrite Your Inner Story Challenge. You can go there. It's a free challenge. Go to ladylexi.com/RYISC. Rewrite Your Inner Story Challenge and sign up. So you'll have an assignment, a question of the day for every day of the week. And we'll work from letting go towards rebuilding yourself and committing to you working towards your goal, but also making it the best life possible, starting with connecting to your inner child, just like you did just now. So let me applaud you. You're still here. Keep writing, and don't forget to subscribe to the challenge. See you next week.